And thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express. It's been a big day for two reasons. One is the March for Justice, and second is the Ejura public inquiry. Both got underway today with fascinating outcomes. We're going to get into both for you, but let's start with the protest, shall we? Because it was a March for Justice demonstration, and it went on as the organizers had planned. It started at the Accra Mall. They went to the Jubilee House where they presented a petition, and then they ended up at Parliament when there was also a petition. So there are two petitions that have been presented, one to the presidency, and it was the Deputy Chief of Staff who received that, and they have a list of demands. We'll go through some of them very shortly for you. And then there was a second petition that also went to Parliament, and we know Parliament, in the chamber itself, it came up on the floor of Parliament, discussed that particular petition, and we know that there is possibly going to be a consideration of that possibly tomorrow, and a committee may be tasked to look at the demands that the protesters had put forward. And so there's a lot that we can expect going forward at the back of this demonstration. The protest was led by the NDC youth wing. They, in fact, led this, and we know that there have been other allied groups that also joined them today, particularly the Inter-Party Resistance. You know, they were formed in the early days of the protests against the new voters register. They joined forces with them and they hit the streets today. We also know that they are asking for a few things, which is the purpose of the demonstration. That all persons killed and brutalized by the police and military forces, they want justice for all of them. And so these were things that they also captured in their petition that they gave to the two institutions. They also want social justice for the unemployed youth. So this is broadly beyond the security questions, right? Now, we also know that the petition to the president, you see the videos, I'm pretty sure you've seen a lot of them, where they're standing at Jubilee House and reading out some pretty strong criticism of the president in his own house. And thankfully, I have a man who made it very famous. You kill a man in his own house, joining me very shortly, because in that house, of Jubilee House, they were making very, very strong, points directed at the president, in front of the president's chief of staff, and they make the point, delivering the direct opposite of almost all of what he had promised, which led him to win power last year's elections and sworn in this year. They also said, you've shown, this is the president, you've shown no commitment in reducing life-threatening challenges facing the country. So they really came determined to make their voices heard and asserted, regardless of whether they were doing it at Jubilee House, the president's own turf, or indeed in Parliament. Now, there is no hope for the youth under your stewardship. Again, they told the president directly through his Deputy Chief of Staff. They again told the Deputy Chief of Staff that the government is not working for the generality of Ghanaians, but a select few, mainly family members and cronies. Now, so we counted as many as 8 demands that had been laid before the president and Parliament that they will both have to look into and answer, and they're expecting responses shortly. One of the key things we need to be interrogating tonight is, okay, so in case there are 8 demands unmet, what next? What happens? We'll get into that shortly, and if we look at it. Now, my research desk here at John News put this together for me. So the clustering the various promises into key areas, so we get a bigger picture of where the focus is. Most of the majority of what they put forward, and that tells you where the key focus has been for the protesters. It's in the area of security. Clearly, this is where the main focus is. And as you can see, the graph that depict there are 4 demands that they make there out of the 8. So that clearly tells you where the key focus is for the protesters. And then you see that all the other key issues, unemployment had 1 demand, corruption had 1, campaign promises had 1, and then judiciary also had 1, because they also raised an issue of dealing with members of the judiciary they believe may be politically compromised. So that's a key point to note from this, just to give you a pictorial understanding of what the key issues are for them. Now, as we've laid out, the demands are a lot. Pay compensation to all the victims, but most importantly, implement the Emil Short Commission report. We'll get into that shortly, because the government issued a white paper. So what should the government implement? Is it the white paper or the report itself? We'll get into that technicality very shortly, because the government had made this point clear on this going forward. They also want to ensure the victims in police and brutalities get justice as required by the law. So basically that has to do with this side. Now, to the second bit of the public inquiry, I want to show you a video of what happened today at the Ejura public inquiries. Why is that video important, and is it linked to the protest? Definitely it is, because if you listen to the protesters, they were clear, and remember that Ejura was just last week. That's one of those that was really the final, the straw that broke the back of the camel in pushing the youth wing of the NDC to say enough is enough, let's hear the streets. And so let's bring in what happened today, because this is, I guess, one of those demands being met, as some of the government officials had intimated, because the committee is looking into this to bring justice to those who have been affected. 2 people killed so far. Okay, so this is Erastus Saridonko, my colleague, and I respect him because he's done a yeoman's job, put himself in a line of fire so that you can get pure, unadulterated report of what happened in Ejura when the protest happened last week. He was called before the committee, the ministerial committee probing the Ejura protest and the subsequent deaths that we saw, and he gave a testimony. And a few things I want to point out to you, and a lot of questions we want to ask on the back of the way the whole inquiry went today, when my colleague Erastus, a gallant man, very daring indeed, came before them. Let's play that. I'll pause at bits when I need to. Let's play that.
You see, there is a portion where they have written something. Yes, we are all Kaka. Police arrest 2 suspects involved in attack of hashtag Fix the Country campaigner. You understand? But this is a matter you are now telling us that you did not take steps to ascertain whether in fact Kaka was a member of the Fix the Country campaign group. So why should your outfit in this particular clip indicate there that some 2 persons have been arrested in connection with the murder of Kaka, a member of the hashtag Fix the Country campaign?
My Lord, that was the
important. And you will know that this then becomes the focus for the entire time Erastus was before the committee. And don't forget, before we even go into any of the analysis I'm going to do for you, let's go back to the seeming terms of reference that the presidency put forward, for which reason this committee was established. And I want to read to you verbatim what the president's own statement, the directive he gave was. And that gives you a sense of what the terms of reference is. The terms of reference for this committee, and by the way, that was the chairman there. That's the chairman, Justice Kumsing, speaking, asking that question about a tag, a hashtag, and a tag that was rolling whilst the live event of the protest was ongoing that we were covering live. He was asking that question. Before you make sense of that, let's go back to the terms of reference. The presidency says they've directed the Interior Minister Ambrose Derry to, quote, conduct forthwith a public inquiry into circumstances that led to the unfortunate occurrences of Tuesday, 29th June 2021. So there's a very specific day's event which they are supposed to probe. The circumstances that led to that event. And the presidency were clear in choice of words. They called the events, they called it occurrences, but qualified it as unfortunate occurrences. You have to probe that event. No more, no less, circumscribed, and made recommendations on that day, what happened that day. So that to start analyzing what they were doing today, you need to ask yourself, so what occurrences happened on the day? There were 3 occurrences that we put together that happened on the day. 1, Kaka was buried. That's 1. And remember, the presidency says unfortunate occurrences. Would you categorize the burying of Kaka as unfortunate? You definitely not. I mean, so that doesn't come into what they were supposed to look into, right? Second event that happened, after the burial, the people went on a protest because, of course, they were angry that somebody they identify with has been killed. That's the second event that happened, a protest. Third is police military called in Guns were fired, people were killed. Third event, right? And that also agrees with the police's own narration of events, right? So that is the three occurrences. We can discount the first because you can't put the burial in the same category as an unfortunate occurrence, but you can definitely put the two. Again, if the president decides to call the protest as such, then you can put in that category, right? I mean, and of course, we saw, as we've seen some of the videos, there were throwing of stones, etc. So you can put that in the part of the protest. Now, the key thing to note is then you have a question that begins about, to a journalist, who, by the way, I must emphasize this very importantly. I list occurrences for you so that, and to note the terms of reference, and so that you can appreciate that in which of these occurrences on that day, which you're supposed to probe, would you attribute to a reporter's job, for example? Did the reporter cause the protest? Did the reporter cause the shooting that led to the death? Did the reporter cause the throwing of the stones? These are things you need to be paying attention to. That's why I broke it down for you. And so we have the chairman ask a question about a tag. And I want to read a tag for you. The tag he took issue with. And he was pressing the journalist on it. What was the tag? We wrote on whilst the thing was being covered live, by the way. And so I'll come back to that. That's also a significant point. We are all caca. Police arrest 2 suspects involved in attack of hashtag Fix the Country campaigner. That is what he was referring to and was questioning my colleague Erastus about. Now, the key point to note about that is we are reporters. The campaigner who died, the Fix the Country campaigners themselves issued a statement claiming him as one of theirs. That's first thing to know. We are reporters. The second, the police themselves in the statement also say that is a subject of interest for them in their inquiry, in their investigations. The link between his activism as a link to Fix the Country campaign and social media activism and the possibility that that may have been the reason why he may have been killed. The police was looking into that. So for the campaigners, it was one of theirs. 2 things you can describe him as. 1, Fix the Country campaigner, because the people themselves who are campaigners identify him as one of their own, or a social media activist. But then that became a key focus for them. And remember, as I go on, without Erastus's fantastic job, there will be no other video evidence for this committee's work. Absolutely none. All the footage that you've seen on social media that some have borrowed and cropped out Joy News, it's all his work. Fantastic gentleman. With a cameraman who was bold. When bullets were flying, somebody who was shielding them got killed in front of them. The cameraman still managed to capture a lot of what you saw. Everything you saw, a lot of it, he captured it. Without him, they have nothing really to work with. You know what else would they have to work with? The minister of the region, who is a chairman for the Security Council there, came before the committee before Erastus. He said he also had a video. This video we played on the same show last week of the water cannon vehicle going, the people following it and throwing stones at it. That is his video. He was asked, what's the source of it? He says, I won't tell you, but I can give it to you. So without Erastus, you only have the word and the video that tells the story of the regional commander who says, I authorized the deployment. So without Erastus, this will be very difficult to establish. And yet, the questions were about tags. It almost became an ethics class when we are talking about the death of 2 people. One person has his leg amputated. Many others got injured. Play on.
Tag, the tagline for Kaka and what he was doing. And in fact, the Fix the Country campaigners came out with a release indicating that he was a member and that was the job he was doing. Later on, when we went to Ejura, his family, some of his family members indicated he wasn't a member. Some said he was a member. So there is that confusion as to whether he was a member, he's not a member. But what he did and what he was doing on social media and on his pages is similar to what the Fix the Country campaigners are doing.
Erastus, I think that ethical journalism requires two things. First, that you verify, you cross-check your sources and your information, and that is then considered also fair, what you put out. Do you think that on this occasion you were aligned to these two tenets of journalism?
My Lord, I
Pause that for
appreciate...
me. That is Juliet. And Juliet is Pen Plus Byte. It's a civil society head of a civil society group called Pen Plus Byte, right? And they operate in the space of, media work sometimes. Trained journalists hold a few. A very reputable organization, right? And she's the head of that. So she's the person who is expected to bring that side to the conversation in terms of what the media would have done. She asked a question about ethics. When you are probing circumstances that led to the events of a particular day in which 2 people died, this then becomes an ethics class when 2 people are dead. Now, the issue they were taking with that scroll on the television on the day was a live event. There's some who may argue that what we are probing was circumstances that led to. What's their suggestion there? That the live report of the ongoing demonstrations caused the demonstrations. That obviously will be an absurdity if you do that analysis and come to that conclusion. Why? Because it is a live event that we were covering. And so the people who were demonstrating could not have possibly been inspired to throw stones. And Vladimir Chudanso describes it as hooliganism. Could not have possibly been inspired by what was covering live. We are covering the events live. So you have to rule that out, definitely, because it was a live event. And yet, there is a lot of focus on ethics. That clearly is not part of their remit, to be dealing with ethics of something that led to the death of 2 people, right? Obviously, as I've illustrated, the terms of reference to give them, this shouldn't be a focus. He's a journalist. What he's come there to do is to help you with information and what he's captured. You ask him questions about the video. I have been before the Commission of Inquiry before. That's exactly what happened. I want you to play on, and then this then drags on until the end of this particular sitting. Play on.
Your concern a lot, but to criticize my own something that I do not have too much control over at the time I was reporting will be a bit unfair.
Please go on. I still want you to play on. Okay, so that's Erastus that answered the question. And then later, you have Vladimir Chudanso also take over. And he asked the question. This, I guess, tells you where the questions were leading to. And I want to quote him. He says, don't you think the media is to blame, and I'm quoting him, for some of the things that happened? Don't you think the media is to blame for some of the things that happened? So already he is suggesting that, and remember, go back to the specific issue they're taking with the tag, that coverage may have led to that particular event of the day. How is that possible? When the events of that day were covering the live event of a protest. You need to bear that in mind. And there's a lot of questions that this have raised about the conduct and the focus of this committee. And I want to go back to the terms of reference. It is conduct forthwith a public inquiry into the circumstances that led to the unfortunate occurrences of Tuesday, 29th June 2021. That is exactly it. You can suggest that the live coverage of an event caused the event. It just can't be. It's just not an argument you can sustain. But that's what the focus of it was. And my colleague was subjected to that for quite a while. But of course, we have made the videos available to them. And again, they played bits and pieces of the videos that were not indeed the full ones that we had given them. That would have helped them. We are committed to assist. We've done that before with the Commission of Inquiry into Ayawaso. That's one of the key things I wanted to stress for you on today. And we're going to be discussing that very briefly. Sam George is joining me. We are going to also be speaking shortly with Adam Bona, and we'll also hear, of course, from some of the key people who are also on the streets today protesting. Stay with me here on PM Express. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies, wherever you are, for joining us on PM Express. My guest in the studio is Sam George, who is attired in red, and I guess it signifies something that has happened today, the protest. Also joining us via Zoom is Adam Bona. I'll pick a start shortly on what happened today before the committee, but also the protest. Remember that there was tension between the protesters and the security apparatus. They had initially said, "Don't go, we can't protect you." And then they made a U-turn, but as we know, it went on smoothly. I mean, what lessons there can we learn? Because remember that I've talked about protests, right? There was a protest in Ejura that led to people there. There was a protest today that went on peacefully also. He will join us shortly on that. Adam Bona, thank you for joining us. He's a security analyst with the Security Warehouse Limited. And also have the NDC represented. He's the Deputy General Secretary of the party, also joining us. And for Sam George, because he's a member of Parliament for Nengo Pram, I'm interested because a bit of it went to Parliament as well, and I wonder what that petition seeks to do. But Sam George, let me ask you this. I mean, starting from Ejura, one of the demands that you made, obviously, was the Ejura killings, right? And then you said you want to get to the bottom of that, and etc. Some say, but the Ejura public inquiry is definitely one of those government actions that will deliver some of the demands that you've made.
Well, very good evening to your viewers and to yourself, Evans. We have absolutely no problems with the public inquiry, the Ejura public inquiry. However, we have absolutely no confidence in the government's willingness, and two, its ability to be able to see through the recommendations of the committee. And I'll tell you why. Asawase, 7 young men were killed by police officers, shot and killed in broad daylight. They were called armed robbers. When that was challenged, what government did was to set up an inquiry. The inquiry recommended the prosecution of the officers who shot and killed the Asawase 7. Government went with money to give the family members and says to us, the Interior Minister, says government cannot prosecute the policemen because none of the policemen is willing to tell government who shot. So they're expecting the policemen who were on patrol, some of whom shot and killed the 7, to come and snitch. Now, everybody who knows how the operations of security services are, when they're going on patrol, the chief armorer gives you a rifle, gives you bullets, and you sign for the number of bullets. When you come back, you account for your bullets. How did you dispose of them? You do a full report. So where are those reports? So Asawase 7, government is not prosecuting anybody. Ayawaso West Wagon, a presidential commission of inquiry, not a ministerial commission. Presidential commission, that's the highest kind of commission you can find. Justice Emil Short, head of Shraj, extensive public service experience. Mr. Patrick Ike Achampong, IGP under President Kufuor, policeman par excellence. Henrietta Mensah Bonsu, professor, one of the finest criminal jurisprudence lawyers you have in this country. She's actually been, in my opinion, rightfully promoted to the Supreme Court by President Akufo-Addo to be a Supreme Court judge today. She's the Supreme Court judge of the country. These 3 eminent persons sat and carried out an investigation into Ayawaso West Wagon, did a detailed report. What did President Akufo-Addo say? He's thrown the report away. He says that these 3 eminent persons, they don't understand English. So the terms of reference, they didn't know what it was about.
That's not what he said.
When he says they didn't understand the terms of reference, the terms of reference were written in French.
There was a white paper. And so
the white paper says that the commission failed to understand the terms of reference. And the terms of reference were in English. And so if you're telling me that a woman who sits on our Supreme Court today a former chief IGP, and a former head of SHRAJ don't understand English and don't know their terms of reference, what more do we need? And you see, if we had implemented the recommendations from the Emil Short Commission report, the killings in Techiman South will not have happened. Ejura will not have happened. Wa will not have happened. Because in there were systemic reforms in how the chain of command for the deployment of security personnel from national security, the Ghana Army, and the police should be done. A regional minister will not have picked the phone and deployed soldiers to Ejura to go and shoot and kill.
But he's the chairman of the Security Council for the region.
A regional minister should not be deploying soldiers in our country. You see, we must, and that's part of what we're talking about today.
But the police are allowed to call in the military when they are.
Thank you. Was it the police commander? Was it the regional commander?
But that architecture puts the political head of the region in charge of that.
You see, Evans, when you understand the security framework, and I'm sure when you speak with Adam, he'll tell you, when the police determine that they no longer have the capacity to control it, there is a chain of command that runs through. It goes all the way to the director of operations at national. From him, he goes to the IGP. And then that goes to the chief of army staff.
We've decentralized that process.
No.
We have.
The decentralization does not put
at the
it
regional
in the hands.
and even at the district level.
You see, that's the point I'm making to you. You don't have a politician, and that's the point I made. And I've seen that Joy Multimedia has done some info speaks with it. I said the military and the police, our security services, must not be at the beck and call of politicians, whether they are NDC or MPP. This attempt to put soldiers as a first point of response in this country is a recipe for disaster. And that's why we're saying that, look, if Akufo-Addo was going to be more focused, President Akufo-Addo, more focused on being commander-in-chief of the armed forces than buffing in the air, and did his real job that we pay him for, we will not be having this mess. Ejura public inquiry, they would make fantastic recommendations if they do the right thing. That is, if they don't go down the path. I mean, the line of inquiry that you showed with the Rastus Asaridonko's. I mean, I'm trying to understand the logic in the head of the three people there, okay? Because they are majoring in minors and minoring in the major. They're not focusing on the substance. They're chasing the form. But that's fine. Let's assume that they're able to retrace their steps and produce a proper report. Akufo-Addo will not implement that report.
But it's interesting you say that. So what's the point of then submitting a petition then if you don't trust that he will do anything with it? You expend energy, resources, organize a protest, and submit a petition to somebody you say he won't do anything with.
So we submitted, that's why we didn't only submit a petition to him, we also sent it to Parliament. And I believe that this afternoon, when Parliament has started the processes to admit the petition and have a parliamentary inquiry. Because you see, Akufo-Addo, what we did with him today was to tell him to his face that he's a failure.
So that's what you wanted to do. That's what you wanted to do. But isn't there in there some commendation for the person? That I said jokingly when I was
commendation.
Now, I'm joking. Let me explain and ask the question. I said jokingly that you get to the man's house, he allows you in. His chief representative stands with you, face to face. He allows you to say all the things, sometimes very, very harsh things that were said today to him, to his face in his house. He takes the petition, assures you something to be done. That definitely is a Democrat. That's definitely somebody who encourages free speech, is receptive to all this criticism that you've laid on him, allows you in, takes it, and lets you off.
He had no options. Akufo-Addo does not allow free speech. If he allowed free speech, wait. If he allowed free speech, your colleague Latif would not have been brutalized at the police.
What is the police? How is Akufo-Addo got to do it?
I'll show you. When I finish, I'll show you. Manasseh Azuri Awuni would not have been hounded out. Ahmed Swale would be alive. Caleb Kuda would not have had a massage of his groin by Ajiman's legs. Colonel Ajiman's legs. Edward Adeti would not have been kicked out because he exposed the corruption of a minister of state, Roxin Bukari. Now, when we elected a president, we didn't make him president of Ghana alone. We made him president of the republic and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. When he goes to stand there and takes the salute and he's sweeting him, you think it's only about taking the salute that makes you commander-in-chief? It's about being responsible for the actions of the military that you command.
So you say he takes ultimate responsibility for everything the police does, even an officer.
Why? Where are you going to blame John Mahama? Where are you going to blame John Mahama? Who is commander-in-chief? When the military messes up, when rogue elements within the military mess up, when rogue elements within the police or the security services mess up, ultimate responsibility rests with the man who we have paid, who we pay with our taxes, who we have charged to ensure that he runs this country. And that person is President Akufo-Addo. He is more interested in having his officers deploy the military to bastardize the very civilians whose taxes buy the bullets and the guns that they use.
Hold on for me. I want to bring Adam Bona, security analyst, into the conversation. Mr. Bona, thank you for your time here on PM Express. Let me start off with one of the ongoing solutions to the problems that the protesters have outlined today, which is the Ejura public inquiry. Of course, one of the key things that had triggered the protest was that there have been a lot of insecurity, police, military had killed people. Get to the bottom of it. So the inquiry started today. I mean, I know you've watched it very closely. From what you saw today, confident that it will deliver a report that begins to address the concerns that the NDC Youth Wing manifested today and talked about today when they met the president representative at the Jubilee House?
Let me say good evening to you, Evans, and Honorable Sam George. And I believe you said Otokuno. Yes. So, yes. Now to answer your question, yes, partly so. I think if for nothing at all, this ministerial committee, day one, has unearthed a lot of lapses. We would not have gotten to know a lot of things that probably took place, that culminated into the killing of these two innocent persons. And so I have expectations that the committee's recommendations will and should be implemented. That is the only way probably we can have some closure to at least one of the many chaotic situations we found ourselves that led to innocent people dying at the hands of those we buy, guns and, bullets, wear them uniforms, deploy them to protect us. I think this should help us. But let me be quick to say that I am actually not expecting, I'm not trying to jump the gun, but I'm not expecting the military officers who were deployed there to be punished. I'm not expecting it. I have maintained that withdraw the military from all civilian populated areas, capacitate the police. If our police officers, you saw today, in fact, I had something to do very early in town, but because of the NDC youth demonstration, obviously where I live, I have to go through, the Accra Mall area. I need to go through Shiashi before I leave. And so I decided not to, because I feared if it turned chaotic, some bullets could fly, and I didn't want to be caught. But to go back to the issue, you saw, I don't think I saw military officers deployed at, you said the president's home. I didn't see military officers. I rather saw police officers who were in full riot gear, waiting to ensure that, everything was peaceful. Unfortunately, the protesters I commend them, were very peaceful. And so if we capacitate the police and allow them to perform police functions and, divorce the politician, the over-politicization of our security agencies, these needless deaths would be a thing of the past. I'm sure you are going to be talking about the regional minister actually sanctioning.
So yes, that's my next question. Well, what is your verdict on day one of that public inquiry? Let's start.
Day one. I told you.
Let's start first.
Yeah, day one.
Go on.
Yeah, day one. I give them 2 out of 10. Day one, I give them 2. A scale of 1 to 10, I give them 2 out of 10. And I said it earlier on that the line of questioning to me, most of it were needless. I say it is needless because hashtag on that day did not, trigger push the trigger to kill these two innocent people and have one person's leg amputated. I had higher hopes, and I still have hopes. I'm very optimistic that those of us who advocate for good security and safety in this country, we have one of our own. Proud to say we have Vladimir and Chinanso, who is one of us, who is there. And so we are expecting him to, him and the committee members to direct and ask questions that, probably would help us know what took place. But that issue, I mean, the line of questioning, if you ask me today, I would have wished that the Interior Minister will call off today and say, today, you didn't do anything, so restart all over again, let's go over. And I am saying this because you don't want a situation where they finish their work and, the public would have one view and then the, recommendation on one side, and whoever is supposed to implement is also on another side. Let's all agree that people, citizens who are taxpayers, because the regional minister has admitted, even before D-Day today, that he actually authorized their extra judicial killings. He actually commanded the military to go into Ejura.
Yeah, I mean, there are two things. So, sorry, there are two things. He called in the military, but he definitely didn't order them to shoot. I mean, there are two things. I mean, there's the deployment, and then there's the action on the ground.
No, what I'm trying to say is that, Evans, you don't deploy military officers and give them rubber bullets. You don't deploy military officers. And I mean, you deploy the military usually as a backup.
Yeah.
And if you heard from him, he said that I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong. He said that he picked intel. And why did he pick the intel? On his mobile phone. The last time I checked, Evans, we have the security sector in this country have their own secured line or communication line, which they, this GOTA thing they hold around, and they are supposed to be holding them. The last time I checked, it's the Minister of State. I would have expected that protocol, would have required him to even speak to the defense minister. The defense minister, if there was anything, would have elevated it usually to the CDS. CDS wouldn't be. And I am saying that if any minister of state, DC, MCE, could call the military and ask them to go and perform this type of act, then Evans, we are in trouble. And so as far as I'm concerned, I was expecting the committee members to ask him more questions about that. Why did you bypass the Ashanti Regional Police Commander? When it comes to internal security in this country, the various regional commanders are in charge. Mm. When I talk about in terms of those who perform the professional security, I'm not talking about policy. The minister is at the policy level, but when it comes to the technocrat on the ground, is the regional police commander. We have 17 regions in Ghana, including police regions, including Tema. Oh. Each of them is manned by either a deputy commissioner or what do you call them, commissioners of police. So you speak to that person and say, this is the intel I picked. If that person feels that he is incapacitated, he doesn't have the capacity to deal with the threat, he would call his counterpart in the region or elevate it to the IGP. Let me ask again. The regional minister did say that they said he picked intel that they were going to burn down a police station. I know Ejura very well. I haven't been there for some time, but Ejura hasn't really changed. I know that very well. Why these people died? Evans, correct me if I'm wrong. Do we have any police station around there?
Well, I can't answer that because check. I don't know.
Do we have any police station? So let's assume, without admitting, that there was a police station there. I know police stations that have been burnt in this country. Police officers are trained. They would allow properties to be destroyed instead of lives. But in this case, he brought in military officers who have not been trained. to deal with rioters, to deal with civilians. And what did they do to them? Military officers would not retreat. Police officers would always retreat.
And as
so
we saw,
sometimes
the videos that we give them, the videos that
Evans, I'm
briefly,
coming.
because I need to. But
Evans,
I'll come to you shortly.
Let me stay
Even
on.
briefly,
Please,
so I can go for
thing.
a quick break. Yes.
Police officers would usually retreat when they do their own risk analysis and realize that if they try, lives will be lost. They will retreat. And I'll give you an example.
No, I mean, briefly, because I need to,
in the
I need to,
United
my police
Kingdom,
I need to go for a quick break.
when there was rioting, they allowed it to go on. The George Floyd riot, they allowed it, they folded their arms and watched them, because if you have to, you kill human beings. But when you deploy the military officers are trained to stay on there, to stand their ground, not to retreat. And that is what exactly we saw.
Yeah.
So mine is that the line of questioning today is something that I find very worrying, and is the reason why I've given them day one, I've given them two. How I see it.
Yeah, okay. Great insights there. I want to take a quick break. When I return, I'll hear from St. George and, of course, his colleague Otokono, because I want to really get into the Otokono's mind about, so what's the party's next move here? I mean, would they count today as mission accomplished? Stay with me. It's live on PM Express. In my studio with me is St. George, is MP for Nugo Prampram, a key activist in the protest today. Also, we also have on with Zoom is Adam Bonar, and also Peter Bon of Tokono, who is the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. So, Mr. Tokono, let me bring you in. You were also on the ground today. In your view, have you achieved everything you set out to achieve today?
Well, Evans, I think that we have achieved, and even more, what we sought to achieve today. First of all, we sought to make a very loud statement to draw the attention of the world onto the atrocities and what we consider state-organized aggression against innocent citizens, and also to draw attention on the plethora of, issues that borders on hardship, the increment in taxes, numerous taxes that we are paying every single day, and the kind of struggle the ordinary person goes through in Ghana. And I think by what we did, we have achieved that result significantly. Today, we are gratified by the sheer show of strength and the numbers by the people who come to the streets to support our demonstration. Indeed, the NDC Youth Wing led the organization of this demonstration, but the people I saw out there goes beyond and transcends beyond the NDC Youth Wing. Indeed, I'm sure you recounted the inter-party resistance participation, the smaller parties, and APC, UPP, and so on and so forth. We actually saw some MPP members in attendance, and I think that is a very loud statement. It tells a tale of how our troubles, how the insecurity issues, how the hardship transcends political parties. And I think that was very significant. Again, as a politician, one thing I saw which gratifies and gladdens my heart is the Ghanaian spirit of fighting aggressors and oppressors. And I think once again, we told a story that you cannot take the people for granted, and the people continue to remain powerful and supreme, because power resides in the people. What government exercises is just a portion of the people's power that has been arrogated, or if you want, allocated to the government. So what we saw today, is mission accomplished, but it is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end, because we have made some demands on government, and we expect that government will, deal with those demands with dispatch, with urgency. And if we do not get that urgency, it means that there is a lot that we have to do. That will mean that this battle will continue unabated. As we always say, a luta continua, Victoria, etc. We are poised for victory. The young people of this country are not going to sacrifice the generation. We need to make the next generation after us proud. We need to, as it were, protect what our forefathers left for us. The democracy that we are enjoying today, Evans, was not fought for by mere water and strife. It was fought for and secured by blood. And it behooves on us, the new generation, to protect that democracy. And that is what we did today. Today, we made a very loud statement to protect our democracy.
You are a member of parliament. You took part of the petition to parliament. Your expectation of parliament exactly is what?
To exercise oversight responsibility. Parliament is supposed to exercise oversight over the executive, including His Excellency the President and his ministers. And so we want to have a bipartisan committee that will investigate fully this violence that has been perpetrated on our constituents, the people we represent, and then demand of government. The president, his ministers, action must be taken. That will not be a committee report where they can issue a white paper. Government cannot issue a white paper on a parliamentary finding. You understand me?
But who will implement that?
Is going to be bound by it.
Really?
Yes. When Parliament makes demands of them, when the president did his budget and brought it and slashed Parliament's budget. And you see, this is where I would want my colleague MPs to show our mind as MPs. Because we are MPs because of the people. When Parliament's budget was slashed by President Akufo-Addo, when he didn't have the power to, what did the Speaker say? The Speaker said he would not sign the appropriations bill on the 31st of March. He won't sign the bill if the president did not do the correct thing. What happened? Did the president not say that Bedioto, and now Asante Bedioto, his executive secretary, made a mistake in slashing our budget and restored our budget? If we could hold the president to account when the budget of Parliament was slashed and we got the president to do the right thing. This is about the people who make us MPs. This is about our constituents who have died. So I would expect the Speaker, I would expect the minority leader, I would expect the majority leader, and if nobody at all, the 137 of us on the minority side, to stand our ground and say that we will not allow government business go on in that house if the government does not implement whatever the findings of the parliamentary inquiry are. Because we need to get justice. Justice, freedom and justice are the mottos of this, is the motto of this country. And we must get justice for the people of Ghana.
It's interesting you say that because I remember the Techiman South.
Yes.
There was a motion that your side attempted to put forward.
Yes.
And then there was a counter motion
Yes.
that says, go back, way back to...
It tells
whatever.
you how unprepared the government side, the majority is. That's why I said, even if the majority will not go with us, I expect the 137 on our side.
Yeah, but what stops you from going ahead with your motion? That hasn't still
You see, the motion is there.
been carried.
The motion is there.
So what happened?
We need to have the Speaker take us through that motion.
But this is your speaker.
He's not our Speaker. He's the Speaker of Ghana. He doesn't consult NDC. NDC doesn't tell the Speaker what to do. He's the Speaker of Ghana.
He's a member.
And I am making a passionate appeal. He's a member of the NDC.
Yes.
Without doubt. But I'm making a passionate appeal to him that he must take this matter very seriously. And I have absolute confidence in Right Honorable Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagman that he would put the lives of Ghanaians who have been killed by agents of the president in the military. He will put justice for those people in the forefront because all his life he's fought for justice.
Let me ask you a question out of curiosity. You had military men invade the floor of parliament. You haven't proved that.
Absolutely.
I mean, but
We have
that is an indictment on parliament. You see? Your own theft.
You see? Look, and that's why I've used this.
You agree that is an indictment on the parliament?
Absolutely. The man who led the soldiers onto the chamber of the house, that day, I told him to his face, Master, you are a candidate for treason and you ought to be shot at the stakes because you have conducted a coup. Bringing armed soldiers with guns onto the floor of parliament is a coup d'etat. He told me he will beat me. I said, you can't beat me here. This place, this chamber is not Hayaso West Wogon. That man is still the head of presidential security today. Yeah. So it is not like we don't know who it is.
Yeah, but parliament
and I look, I don't understand and that's why I don't understand.
On your own theft.
And that's why I'm saying I'm a member of parliament. And I'm saying that the leaders need to take action. We need to serve notice to those who instructed Colonel Punamani. Because Colonel Punamani did not just enter parliament, the floor of parliament on his own. Somebody took that decision.
Okay. The reason why
we should have a public inquiry and let Colonel Punamani come there and tell us who gave him the orders.
The reason why I asked that question actually is because you trust the parliament to do a more thorough job than the president. Right?
Yes.
But as a citizen, I'm looking back to the invasion of the floor.
Yes.
And I'm asking myself, if your own turf was invaded, you haven't done anything about it, why do you believe that somehow, all of a sudden, you can do something more concrete about other citizens who have been brutalized?
Well, maybe we care more about those who have sent us there than ourselves.
Okay. I want to quickly bring
Rush out of words.
I want to bring Otokuno. Otokuno, so what next? What next for the protest? Now that you've done this today's presentation of petitions.
Well, as I indicated earlier, we expect that the president will act with dispatch. And I've heard that Parliament has initiated some debate already on the matter. And I'm very optimistic and confident in the leadership in Parliament that they will pursue this matter rigorously and we'll get some very positive outcomes. But be that as it may, we are going to continue these actions, these public manifestations unabated. It is going to take several forms. And as and when we decide on which form we are going to take, I'm sure we'll make the public aware. But what we will not allow to happen is for this trend of insecurity to go on, for this trend of state-organized aggression against our people to go on, for this trend of state-organized killings and murder of innocent people to go on. We need to fix our security system. The security system is broken. The economic hardship is unbearable. And it is important to underscore that poverty, economic hardship, is actually the source of crime. So if today you and I are worried about crime on the increase, crime by the state and crime by ordinary people, I think where we would have to deal with it is by fixing the economy and trying to get things to work. You saw what happened in Wa. A military man's phone got missing, and the entire town was, on the lashes of the police of the military men. I think that if perhaps things were good, the military men wouldn't be worried about their missing phones. So it is important to, whilst fixing the security systems, whilst demanding justice for the people, whilst delivering justice for the people, we fix the economy as well.
I mean, let me give a final.
We check the uncontrollable increases in taxes and the introduction of new taxes.
Let me give a final quick word to Adam. But I just have a minute to wrap up. But give me, you're optimistic that things might be different now. Now that we're having it's a different wind blowing in trying to get accountability. In fact, I must indicate in the Wa case there was another sitting today. Right, and then there's Ejura, and then we see Parliament taking up. You are committed something concrete will happen just in a few seconds.
Well, yes, I think so. Yes, I actually listened to Honorable Sam George with regards to Ayawaso West Wagon. I think the difference is that somehow the committee of inquiry that was set up for the Aswance 7, they were paid, victims' family were paid compensation. And so I'm expecting that the leadership of this country would compensate the Ayawaso West Wagon victims, because all of them are alive with, severe injuries and all that. And so I'm very optimistic that this committee will start doing a good job tomorrow. They will start doing a good job tomorrow. So some of us will keenly be watching. And let me also say that the police did a good job today. NDC, the NDC youth also conducted themselves well. So I think the police should engage the fix. Fix the country or fix the nation? Fix the country,
which is the next big protest
they should,
that we have.
Engage them.
And Sandro, you agree that the police did a good job
allow
today?
Them. They should allow them.
Yeah, sorry, because of time, very briefly.
I just want to say a very big thank you to the Ghana Police Service, the IGP, the Regional Commander, National Director of Operations, FPU Commander, and all the men and women who were out there today. Today, they served with integrity. The day our security services get it right, we will praise them. The day they get it wrong, they'll hear from us.
Okay, enjoy the rest of the evening.